You think I don't see it, Jimin? You think I'm blind? Jungkook's voice cut through the air, sharp, trembling, and raw. The crew had just announced the camera test was over, but the red light was still on, flickering faintly, recording everything. Jimin froze, his hand still clutching the mic, eyes darting toward Taehyung, who stood nearby in uneasy silence. The tension between the three of them had been growing for weeks, hidden beneath laughter and fan service, buried under rehearsals and staged smiles. But tonight, when they thought the world wasn't watching, the cracks finally split open. Jungkook? Jimin's voice faltered, almost pleading. He took a step forward as if wanting to explain, but Jungkook lifted his hand in warning, his chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. "Don't," Jungkook said firmly, his tone heavy with exhaustion. "Every time you say my name like that, I want to believe you, but I can't keep pretending anymore." The room grew suffocating, the faint hum of the equipment the only sound in the silence that followed. Taehyung clenched his jaw, his gaze fixed on the floor, but his fists betrayed him, tightening until his knuckles turned pale. "Why now?" Jimin whispered, his voice low, almost inaudible. "Why are you saying this now when... Because the truth doesn't wait for perfect timing." Jungkook's reply was an eruption, his tone cracking with pain and fury. He moved closer, his words spilling out like he had been holding them in for too long. "Do you even realize what it does to me? Watching you smile at him like I was nothing more than a shadow? Do you even care?" Taehyung finally looked up, his eyes narrowing as if every word Jungkook spoke pierced him directly. "Enough," he muttered, but his voice shook. "This isn't the place." "The place?" Jungkook snapped back. "Tell me, Hyung, when is the place? When the cameras are off? When Army isn't watching? Or maybe when you're holding him behind closed doors, thinking I'll never know?" The silence shattered. Jimin's lips parted in shock, his breath catching as though Jungkook had just exposed the very thing he had been trying to bury. "That's not fair," Jimin said, his voice breaking. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand." Jungkook's plea was half demand, half confession. His eyes glistened with something that was not anger anymore, but desperation. "If you don't, I swear I don't know how much longer I can do this." Taehyung's hand twitched, as if he wanted to reach out to intervene, but he stayed frozen, trapped in the war between words and silence. Jimin swallowed hard, his shoulders trembling as he finally turned to Jungkook. "What do you want me to say?" His tone was brittle. "That you were right all along? That I let myself get caught in something I shouldn't? That maybe I'm the reason you're breaking like this?" The rawness of his words hit Jungkook harder than any denial could. He blinked rapidly, his breath uneven. "I just wanted you to choose me," he whispered, his voice almost gone. The crew shifted nervously, realizing the recording was still running, but no one dared to move. Every syllable felt too heavy to interrupt. And then, without warning, the camera light blinked off. The silence that followed was absolute, but the damage had been done. The words had already carved themselves into the air, impossible to erase, impossible to take back. The red light on the camera had died, but the silence it left behind was deafening. The crew, sensing the dangerous weight in the air, shuffled out one by one, leaving the three of them standing in a hollow room that felt suddenly too small. Jungkook's fists were still trembling at his sides, his jaw set, as if he was trying to hold back everything else that wanted to spill out. Jimin opened his mouth to speak, but Taehyung was the first to break. "Do you even realize what you just did?" Taehyung's voice was low, controlled, but there was fire beneath every syllable. "Do you know how reckless that was? What if the footage leaks?" "Do you think I care about footage right now?" Jungkook shot back instantly, his voice slicing through the room. "Let them see it. Let the world see what you've been doing to me." Jimin flinched. Jungkook, please. No, Jungkook snapped, his eyes locked on him with an intensity that burned. You don't get to stop me this time. You don't get to silence me with your soft voice and your empty promises. Not anymore. Taehyung took a step closer, his presence towering, his tone harsh. Watch your mouth. You're crossing a line you can't come back from. Jungkook barked out a bitter laugh. A line? You want to talk about lines? You crossed every line, Young, the moment you decided he was yours to hold on to when I was standing right there. Jimin raised both hands, trembling slightly. Stop it, both of you. This isn't about fighting each other. Yes, it is, Jungkook cut him off, his voice cracking as anger fused with heartbreak. Because you made it that way, Jimin. You stood between us, letting him believe one thing and making me believe another. Do you even know what that's done to me? Jimin's eyes darted helplessly between them, his breath ragged. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt either of you. But you did. Jungkook's words tore out of him like a wound reopening. You hurt me every time you smiled at him like he was your world. You hurt me when you looked at me like I was just a mistake. Taehyung's fists tightened. His voice dropped, dangerously calm. You think this is just about you? You think you're the only one bleeding in this? You have no idea what I've been through, watching him run back and forth between us like a secret neither of us deserved. Stop, Jimin whispered, but his voice was drowned out. Jungkook's gaze hardened. Then tell me, Taehyung, did you ever once think about what I felt? Or were you too busy pretending this was some game you could win? Taehyung's eyes flashed. Don't twist this, Jungkook. Don't act like you're the victim when you've been chasing what was never yours to begin with. The words hit Jungkook like a blade. He staggered back a step, breathless, as if Taehyung had just carved the last shred of hope out of him. Jimin's heart lurched. Taehyung, don't! But Jungkook's voice broke through, hoarse and trembling. Not mine? He let out a hollow laugh, shaking his head. You're right. Maybe he was never mine. But he was never yours either. He was supposed to be ours. The room stilled. Jimin's lips parted, his body frozen as the meaning of Jungkook's words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. His throat worked, but no words came out. Taehyung looked away, his face shadowed in something unreadable. You wanted to know what I wanted, Jimin. Jungkook whispered, softer now, broken. I just wanted you to stop making me feel like I was invisible. Jimin's hand shook as he reached toward him, but Jungkook stepped back, out of reach. I can't do this anymore, Jungkook said, almost to himself, his voice cracking like glass. Not like this. Not when every time I look at you, I see him too. The silence that followed was unbearable. Jimin's chest heaved, his voice trembling as he finally managed to speak. Then what do you want me to do? Jungkook's eyes glistened, though he fought to keep them steady. Choose. The word echoed, heavy and final. Taehyung inhaled sharply, his entire body stiffening at the ultimatum. Jimin's breath caught in his throat, his mind spiraling. The walls of the room felt like they were closing in. But no one said anything more. The only sound was the faint buzz of the equipment cooling down, as if mocking the silence between them. The word lingered in the air like smoke, suffocating, unrelenting. Jungkook's chest rose and fell, his eyes locked on Jimin, waiting for something, anything that might pull him back from the edge. But Jimin didn't answer. His lips trembled, his hands shook, but instead of words, silence poured out of him. He stepped back, his face pale, his gaze darting between Jungkook and Taehyung as if the walls were collapsing on all sides. Jimin, Jungkook whispered, but his voice cracked halfway through. Then, without warning, Jimin turned on his heel and bolted toward the door. "Yay!" Taehyung called after him, his voice sharp. But Jimin didn't stop. The slam of the door echoed like thunder, leaving only the two of them behind. For a long moment, Jungkook and Taehyung stood frozen, the silence pressing down on them like a weight neither of them could carry. "You see?" Jungkook finally said, his voice raw, almost laughing through the pain. "Even now, he runs. He can't even look me in the eyes." Taehyung's fist clenched at his sides, his jaw tight. "But what did you expect him to do, Jungkook? Just fall into your arms because you demanded it? Life doesn't work that way." Jungkook snapped his head toward him, his glare like fire. "Don't you dare lecture me. You think you're better? You think you haven't been pulling him towards you this whole time? You think I didn't see?" Taehyung's composure cracked, his voice rising. "And what about you? Always hovering, always watching, always waiting for a moment to steal him away. Do you think I didn't notice the way you looked at him when you thought no one was watching?" "I wasn't hiding it." Jungkook shot back, stepping closer, his chest nearly colliding with Taehyung's. "At least I was honest with myself. At least I wasn't a coward." Taehyung's hand twitched, as if resisting the urge to strike, but instead he hissed through gritted teeth. "You don't know the first thing about what I've been holding back, the things I've sacrificed. You think this is easy for me?" Jungkook barked out a bitter laugh, tears glistening in his eyes, though he refused to let them fall. "Sacrifice? Don't make me laugh. You had him, Taehyung. You held him in ways I could only dream of. Don't talk to me about sacrifice when you've already had everything I wanted." The room was trembling with the force of their words, the air thick with unspoken history. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Taehyung's voice dropped, low and heavy. "You want to know the truth?" Jungkook froze, his breath catching. "What truth?" Taehyung's eyes narrowed, his tone sharp as a blade. "That night, the one you always suspected? Yes, it happened." The words slammed into Jungkook like a physical blow. His body stiffened, his breath ripped from his lungs. "You're lying," Jungkook whispered, almost choking. "I'm not." Taehyung's expression hardened, though a flicker of regret flashed across his face. "And if you're looking for him to deny it, don't hold your breath. He won't." Jungkook staggered back, his hands trembling violently. He pressed them to his head, as though trying to block out the words, but they clung to him like chains. "Stop," Jungkook muttered, his voice breaking. "Stop it, Taehyung. Don't do this to me." Taehyung's jaw tightened, his voice lowering into something colder. "Face it, Jungkook. He was never yours. He never will be." The silence that followed was unbearable, broken only by Jungkook's uneven breathing. Then, with a sudden fury, Jungkook's fist crashed into the table beside him, the sound exploding in the room. "You think you've won?" Jungkook spat, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anguish and rage. "This isn't over. Not until he says it to my face. Not until he tells me himself." And without waiting for a reply, Jungkook stormed out of the room, leaving Taehyung alone in the wreckage of their words. Taehyung exhaled, long and heavy, his shoulders sagging for the first time. His hand trembled as he reached for the chair, gripping it as though it was the only thing holding him up. "Jimin," he whispered under his breath, a mixture of anger, longing, and sorrow tangled in his tone. But there was no answer, only the echo of footsteps fading down the hall, and the unshakable truth that nothing would ever be the same again. The hallway was long, but Jimin barely noticed his surroundings. His footsteps echoed in rapid bursts, uneven, almost frantic, as though he was trying to outrun the words that clung to him like chains. He didn't care where he was going. He just needed to get away. By the time he reached the dressing room, his chest was burning. He slammed the door shut and leaned against it, his body shaking. His reflection stared back at him from the mirror on the wall, pale, trembling, eyes glossed with a storm he could no longer contain. Why can't I just say it?" Jimin whispered to himself, his voice breaking. He pressed a hand to his chest, as though trying to quiet the pounding inside. Why can't I choose? He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Memories crashed into him. Jungkook's desperate confession, Taehyung's harsh truth, the way that both of them looked at him as though he was the center of a war he never wanted to start. I never asked for this, he murmured, his breath ragged. I never asked to hurt them. The door creaked open suddenly. Jimin froze, lifting his head sharply. Jungkook stood there, his eyes burning with a storm of emotions he could barely hold back. "There you are," Jungkook said, his voice low, but it carried the weight of someone who had run out of patience. Jimin swallowed hard. "Jungkook, please, not now." But Jungkook stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. "No, now. Because if not now, then when? You'll keep running until there's nothing left to run from. And I can't," his voice cracked, his fists trembling. "I can't keep chasing you like this." Jimin staggered back, his lips parting, but no sound came out. Jungkook's chest heaved as he continued. "I know I'm not perfect," Jungkook said, his voice softer now, laced with anguish. "I know I've made mistakes, but everything I've ever done, every stupid thing, it's because of you. Because you mean more to me than anything else, and I can't stand watching you slip further away." Jimin's throat tightened, his voice a whisper. "You don't understand. If I choose you, I lose him. If I choose him, I lose you. And either way, I lose myself." Jungkook's eyes glistened, his hands trembling as he reached out, but stopped midway, hesitating. "Then tell me, Jimin, do I mean enough to you to risk it?" Jimin's heart pounded like a drum. The weight of the question pressed on him, crushing, merciless. His lips quivered, but before he could speak, a sudden knock on the door shattered the fragile moment. Both of them froze. The knock came again, louder this time, then a familiar voice, deep and steady. "Jimin, open the door." "Taehyung." The air in the room turned electric, suffocating. Jungkook's hand curled into a fist, his gaze darting toward the door before flicking back to Jimin. Don't let him in. Not now." Jimin's breath faltered. He stared at the door, then at Jungkook, his body torn between the two voices that had consumed him for so long. And still, he couldn't move. The knock grew harder. "Jimin," Taehyung's voice pressed through the wood, low and unyielding. "Don't make me say it again." Jimin's hands trembled at his sides. Jungkook moved closer, his voice sharp, almost pleading. "Don't you dare open it. If you do, everything we just said, everything, it'll mean nothing." Jimin's breath hitched. His chest rose and fell, torn in two. But the voice on the other side of the door was insistent, impossible to ignore. "Open it, Jimin. We end this tonight." And Jimin, against every instinct screaming inside him, reached for the handle. The click echoed like a gunshot. The door swung open and Taehyung stepped in. His gaze flicked to Jungkook first, sharp as a blade, then settled on Jimin, softer but no less demanding. He closed the door behind him. The three of them were now trapped. No cameras, no crew, no excuses. Jungkook's jaw tightened. "So here we are." Taehyung's lips pressed into a thin line. "Exactly where we should be. No more running, Jimin. No more hiding." Jimin's voice cracked. "I didn't ask for this." "But you let it happen," Jungkook cut in, his tone burning. He turned toward Taehyung, his fury spilling over. "And you knew exactly what you were doing. Every look, every touch, you knew it would tear me apart, and you did it anyway." Taehyung's eyes hardened. "You think I planned this? You think I wanted to fall for the same person you did? Do you have any idea how much I fought against it?" "Not hard enough," Jungkook spat. "If you really cared, you would have stepped back. But you didn't. You held on. You always hold on. And you don't? Taehyung fired back, stepping closer. You cling to him like he's oxygen, like he's the only thing keeping you alive. But tell me, Jungkook, have you ever stopped to ask what he wants? Or is this just about what you can't have? The words landed heavy. Jimin's eyes darted between them, his voice rising with desperation. Stop it, both of you. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about me, about us, about everything we've already broken. But neither of them pulled back. Jungkook's face twisted with pain. Then say it, Jimin. Say what you want. Right here, right now. Jimin's lips trembled, but no words came. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Taehyung's voice cut through. You don't have to say it for him. Say it for yourself. Who do you see when you close your eyes? Who do you think about when you're alone? Stop protecting us and finally tell the truth. Jimin's throat tightened. I don't understand. If I choose one of you, I'd destroy the other. Then destroy me, Jungkook shouted, raw, desperate. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. Taehyung inhaled sharply, his voice steadier but no less fierce. And if it's me you don't choose, I'll take it. But I won't let you run anymore, Jimin. Not from me, not from him, not from this. Jimin staggered back, his body trembling. His heart pounded so violently it hurt. Why are you both doing this to me? Jungkook's voice cracked. Because we love you. The words hung in the air like a final strike. Taehyung's eyes closed briefly, as if to concede a truth he couldn't deny. When he opened them, his gaze burned with the same confession, unspoken, but undeniable. Jimin's knees nearly gave out, his hands pressed against his chest as though trying to keep himself from falling apart. I can't carry this anymore. The room fell silent. The weight of 3 hearts colliding, breaking, and bleeding filled every inch of the space. No one moved. No one dared to speak. And still the unspoken truth lingered, waiting to explode. I can't carry this anymore. Jimin's voice cracked, the weight of his confession collapsing into the silence. His body trembled, his breaths uneven, his hands clutching at his chest as though he was trying to stop it from shattering completely. For a moment, no one moved. Jungkook's fists tightened, his jaw clenched, but his eyes softened with unbearable pain. Taehyung's posture faltered, his shoulders dropping as if all his walls were finally giving way. Then Jimin broke. His knees buckled, and he sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. The sound that escaped him was fragile, choked, raw, the sound of someone finally breaking apart. Jimin, Jungkook whispered, his voice trembling. He stepped forward, hesitating for only a second before he dropped to his knees in front of him. His hands hovered in the air, shaking, then finally rested gently on Jimin's arms. You don't have to do this alone. Please, don't shut me out. Jimin's shoulders shook violently, his tears spilling through his fingers. Jungkook leaned closer, his forehead almost touching Jimin's hands, his voice a desperate whisper. I'm right here. Even if it kills me, I'll stay right here. Before Taehyung could stop himself, he moved too, crossing the room in 2 strides. His hand reached out, firm but trembling, resting on Jimin's back. And so will I, he said quietly, his voice steady, but beneath it was a storm threatening to break. Jimin flinched at the weight of 2 touches, 2 confessions pressing down on him at once. His sobs grew harder, his voice muffled through his hands. Why can't you both just let me go? Why do you keep pulling me apart? Jungkook lifted his head sharply, his voice rising. Because I can't. Because letting you go feels worse than dying. Taehyung's jaw tightened, his hand still on Jimin's back. And I won't, because I'd rather burn with you than live without you. Their words clashed in the air, violent, unrelenting. Jimin's sobs twisted into a cry that pierced both of them. Stop! Please, just stop! But they neither could. Jungkook's voice rose, fierce, trembling. I don't care about winning. I care about him. I've always cared. Can you say the same, Young? Or is this just another battle to you? Taehyung's eyes burned, his chest heaving. Don't you dare question what he means to me. The room vibrated with the force of their words. Jimin's sobs echoed, torn between two fires, each burning brighter, fiercer, unwilling to be extinguished. And for the first time, Jimin whispered the words neither of them expected. I hate you both for this. Silence slammed into the room. Jungkook froze, his arms still wrapped around him, his breath caught. Taehyung stiffened, his expression breaking for just a split second. Jimin lifted his head, tears streaming, his gaze shattered. I hate that you've turned me into this. I hate that you've made me choose between the two people I can't imagine losing. I hate you because I love you both. The confession hung heavy, heavier than anything before it. No one moved, no one spoke. And in that silence, they all realized this was only the beginning of the storm.
Jimin's voice still echoed, fragile yet devastating. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush the air out of the room. Jungkook's breath hitched, his arms frozen around Jimin, while Taehyung's entire body stiffened, his eyes widening before narrowing into something unreadable. You can't mean that, Jungkook whispered, his voice trembling, almost begging. Jimin, you can't. But Jimin's gaze was steady now, though wet with tears. I do. Taehyung stepped forward, his voice sharp, cutting. Do you realize what you're saying? You can't have both of us. You can't keep us hanging in the same noose. I never wanted this, Jimin shot back, his voice breaking into a raw cry. I never asked for your love, yours or his, but it happened and I can't erase it. Jungkook stood, his hands trembling at his sides, his voice rising. So what now, Jimin? You want us to fight for you until one of us breaks completely? Is that what you want? Jimin shook his head violently. No, I want you to understand. I want you to see that I'm drowning, that I can't breathe between the two of you. Taehyung's voice grew darker, lower. Then choose who saves you. The words struck like lightning. Jungkook spun toward him, fury igniting. Stop forcing him. Stop twisting everything so it fits your pride. And you're no different. You think your desperation makes you noble? All it does is chain him down. Shut up! Jungkook's shout tore through the air. He stepped forward until he was inches from Taehyung, his chest heaving. Don't pretend you're the martyr here. You've been playing this game from the start. Every time you touched him, every time you looked at him like he was yours, you knew exactly what it was doing to me. And what about you? Taehyung barked, his control slipping. Clinging to him like a child terrified of being abandoned. Do you think that's love? That's selfishness, Jungkook. Pure selfishness. I'd rather be selfish than a liar. At least I never pretended to hold back. At least I never hid behind excuses while tearing him apart. The words hung heavy, electric. Taehyung's fists clenched, his jaw tightened. For a moment, it looked like he might strike, but instead he forced himself to inhale sharply, his voice trembling with restrained rage. You don't understand, do you? Loving him was never a choice. It was a war I lost the moment I saw him. And you, his eyes burned into Jungkook's, you've been my enemy ever since. Jungkook's chest rose and fell, fury and anguish twisting together. Then maybe that's what we are, enemies. Jimin's scream broke the moment. His body shook violently, his tears streaming. He shoved between them, his arms outstretched. Do you hear yourselves? You say you love me, but all you've done is tear each other apart, and me with you. His voice cracked, his whole body trembling as he shouted, if this is love, then I don't want it. Both Jungkook and Taehyung froze. The words cut deeper than any wound, sharper than any confession. Jimin's breath came in ragged sobs. His tears echoed like shattered glass. None of them spoke again, because the truth had already ripped them wide open. The door slammed shut in the dead of night. the sound sharp enough to rip both Jungkook and Taehyung out of their restless half-sleep. "Jimin?" Jungkook's voice cracked as he bolted upright, scanning the dim room. Empty bed. No shadow. No trace of warmth left behind. Taehyung stumbled to his feet, panic creeping into his chest. "He's gone." The words chilled Jungkook to his bones. He rushed toward the door, flinging it open, his voice breaking into the hallway. "Jimin!" The echo came back, hollow, mocking. Taehyung followed, his expression tense, his fists trembling. He wouldn't just... He stopped himself, shaking his head. Unless he finally broke. Jungkook turned on him, rage flaring. "This is your fault!" He shoved Taehyung hard against the wall, his voice seething. "You pushed him, you cornered him until he couldn't breathe." Taehyung shoved him back, his own fury exploding. "And you smothered him, clinging like a chain around his neck. Don't you dare put this all on me." "Shut up!" Jungkook roared, his chest heaving. "If anything happens to him, I swear..." "I swear what?" Taehyung snarled, stepping closer. "That you'll hate me more than you already do? That you'll finally admit you'd rather kill me than see me near him?" Their breaths clashed in the narrow space, rage and grief colliding until it almost broke them both. But underneath it, both knew one truth. Jimin was gone, and without him, their war had no center. Jungkook's voice cracked, softer now, laced with desperation. "We have to find him before something happens." Taehyung exhaled shakily, his anger dissolving into something heavier. "Do you even realize? We might have already lost him. Not to danger, not to anyone else, but to us." The words hit Jungkook like a knife. For once, he had no comeback, no fury left to throw. Only silence, thick and suffocating. The night stretched, every second louder than the last. Somewhere out there, Jimin was alone, and for the first time, Jungkook and Taehyung were forced to face the terrifying possibility that their love hadn't saved him. It had destroyed him.
The night stretched into dawn, yet Jimin's bed remained empty. Jungkook's hands shook as he scrolled through his phone, calling again and again, every ring unanswered. Taehyung sat slumped against the wall, silent, but his eyes betrayed the storm raging inside him. Where could he have gone? Jungkook's voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. Taehyung finally spoke, his tone raw. He's not the type to vanish without reason, which means... He trailed off, his jaw tightening. He planned this. Jungkook's head snapped toward him. Planned? You think Jimin's been... His throat closed, the thought too unbearable. Taehyung nodded slowly. I think he's been carrying something he never told us, and we were too blinded by our jealousy to see it. The words stung because they were true. Jungkook wanted to argue, to lash out, but instead he felt his chest cave in. His mind replayed every moment. Jimin's forced smiles, the way his laughter sometimes cracked, the nights he stayed quiet while the two of them fought. It wasn't just pressure, it was pain. Jungkook clenched his fists. Then we find him, and this time we actually listen. Hours later, a message came, an anonymous tip on an old fan forum. Someone saw Jimin at the cliffs near the old lighthouse. Jungkook bolted for the door, Taehyung right behind him. The car ride was suffocating. Silence stretched thin like glass ready to shatter. When they finally arrived, the sight of Jimin standing alone at the edge of the cliff nearly tore Jungkook's heart out. Jimin! Jungkook's voice cracked as he ran forward. Jimin turned, his eyes heavy, exhausted, as if he hadn't slept in days. His lips curved into a faint, broken smile.
So you found me. Taehyung's breath hitched. Why, Jimin? Why here? Jimin's gaze dropped to the ground. Because this is where it all started. The place I swore I'd never return to. And yet, here I am. Jungkook frowned, stepping closer. What do you mean? What happened here? Jimin's silence was louder than words. Finally, he spoke, his voice trembling. You think my biggest burden was choosing between you two, but the truth is, my past is heavier than both of you combined. Taehyung's throat tightened. What past? Jimin's eyes glistened as he finally looked at them. The one I'd been running from my entire life. The one that makes me wonder if I even deserve love at all. The words dropped like a bomb, heavier than any confession of affection or betrayal. Jungkook froze, his chest burning. Jimin, Jungkook whispered, but Jimin shook his head. You don't understand. Neither of you do. And maybe it's better if you never find out. Jungkook's heart nearly stopped. Don't say that! Don't you dare! But Jimin only closed his eyes, the cliff winds swirling around him, his pain no longer something he could hide. And for the first time, both Jungkook and Taehyung realized this was bigger than them.
Jimin, please step back! Jungkook's voice ripped through the morning air, raw with desperation. His feet carried him forward, but his heart felt like it was stuck in his throat. Jimin turned his face slightly, his eyes distant. Why do you always come after me when it's already too late? Taehyung's voice broke in, trembling but firm. It's not too late. Nothing is too late if you're still standing here with us. Jimin shook his head slowly, almost sadly. You don't get it. Neither of you ever did. His eyes shifted between them, filled with a mix of sorrow and something darker, resignation. Do you know why I keep smiling in front of the cameras? Why I let you two fight over me instead of stopping it? Because it was easier than admitting the truth. Jungkook's chest heaved. Then tell us the truth now. Don't run from it, not again. Jimin's lips trembled. For a moment he hesitated. Then finally, the dam broke. I've been carrying this guilt since I was 16. His voice cracked, thick with emotion. Back then, I had a best friend. Someone who believed in me more than I believed in myself. And one night, when he needed me most, I wasn't there. He left and never came back. The last message he sent me was, "Don't forget me." The silence that followed was suffocating. Taehyung's eyes widened. Jimin, are you saying yes? Jimin's voice was almost a whisper, yet it cut like glass. I've been carrying this on my shoulders ever since. Every time I look at you two, every time you say you care about me, I hear his voice asking, why wasn't I there for him? Why do I get to live, to be loved, when he never had that chance? Jungkook's chest weakened. Oh my God! He wanted to reach out, to hold Jimin, but fear paralyzed him. Jimin continued, tears streaking down his face. That's why I pushed people away. That's why I smiled while you fought. Because deep down, I don't think I deserve either of you. I don't think I deserve love at all. Taehyung couldn't hold it in anymore. He stepped forward, his voice cracking. Stop it, Jimin. Stop blaming yourself for something that wasn't your fault. You were just a kid. How could you have known? Jungkook's voice followed, louder, sharper. And even if you made mistakes back then, that doesn't erase who you are now. You're not defined by what happened. You're defined by the way you've carried all of us through our darkest nights. Do you even realize how much you've saved us? For the first time, Jimin looked shaken, not by pain, but by disbelief. Saved you?
Jungkook nodded furiously, stepping closer. Yes, you saved me when I thought I wasn't enough. You saved Tae when he thought he was losing himself. You've been the light in both our lives, even when you couldn't see your own. Don't you dare say you don't deserve love, because you're the very reason we know what love feels like. Taehyung's voice was softer, but just as fierce. If you leave us now, Jimin, that guilt will eat you alive forever. But if you stay, if you let us stay by your side, maybe together we can finally heal. The words hung in the air. Jimin's body shook, his tears unstoppable. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to collapse, not into despair, but into the arms that had been waiting for him all along. Jungkook and Taehyung held him, not as rivals, not as broken halves of a triangle, but as two souls who finally understood the weight he had been carrying. And as the sun rose higher, painting the cliff in light, Jimin whispered between sobs, "Then don't let me go." Jungkook's grip tightened. Never. Taehyung's voice followed, steady and resolute. Not in this lifetime. For the first time, the three of them stood together, not as fractured pieces, but as something whole. The past couldn't be erased, the scars would never vanish, but they finally understood love wasn't about possession or rivalry, it was about staying, even when it hurt. And in that fragile, trembling dawn, they chose to stay.